So I'm going to question your ability to bless things.
You're questioning my ability to bless things?
That's the first thing I'm going to bring up.
Okay.
You have a running track with me on blessings and situations that happen after blessings.
Oh boy. This makes me really nervous because I know the last time when I blessed your car,
You broke it.
It exploded.
That was the first blessing.
Yeah.
So my first blessing is, yes, you blessed my car and then my
Right.
transmission blew out a week later.
Right.
Then you blessed my second car.
Right.
And you broke the hood thing that keeps it up because you were blessing the engine.
I forgot about that.
Then
honestly though, that's poor craftsmanship. Those things should not snap off like that.
Whatever, I'm just saying.
I'm blaming, I don't remember what kind of car it was, but I'm blaming them.
It's in the context of blessings.
It wasn't my fault.
Then you blessed my cat yesterday,
Yeah.
or like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
As you blessed my house. And then he threw up.
I think you had already explained your cat's dietary habits, which include insects. And
no, they don't.
I'm gonna say it's pretty safe that your cat eating things that he's not supposed to eat is the reason that he's throwing up. It's not because I blessed him, although it's not infrequent that during the course of, say, an exorcism, the people who are being exorcised vomit. So cats are evil. Ergo, when I blessed your cat, he threw up. I did you a favor. The demon has been cast out.
I'm so glad you took it so well. I did not even think about that.
Yeah, cats are evil. So
no, cats are not evil.
You should be grateful I even was willing to bless that thing.
He liked you though. He stayed near you.
Well, I don't think that necessarily means affection. That means suspicion.
No.
He's like, I don't know what this dude's about.
It means comfortability. Like he wanted to be near you.
Okay. That's because I didn't give off my anti-cat vibes like I usually do. So like I have friends and their cat always comes and like sits right next to me. And it's the last thing I want. I don't want that cat anywhere near me.
You give an anti-cat vibe?
Yeah. So
he knows?
What they say is that like cats can sense when people don't like them, so they just come over to them. They're like, well, you're going to deal with this. Dogs, on the other hand, when they get the sense that somebody doesn't like them, will go away, or they'll like kind of growl at them and try to make them leave. Yeah. Cats, on the other hand, just like, you're going to like me. You don't have a choice because cats are evil, manipulative. Yep. Wow. So I wasn't expecting to start that way. I was expecting to start a totally different way.
Really?
Yeah. Here's how I was going to start.
How are you going to start?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to catch Paola's live reaction here. So if you're watching the video, great. If not watching the video, then you're just going to have to.
6 video views. Most people just listen.
I know. You're going to have to listen to the way that she reacts to this picture.
Oh my gosh. Oh. I'm trying not to do too much over this podcast.
Do it.
Oh
do all the reactions.
She's so I'm sorry. What can you say? Look at this.
I am so happy that this is exactly how the reaction is going. This is exactly what I was hoping for. This is fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
So, just so that the good people who are listening and have now heard you reacting in this way, here, let's just like move your microphone away so you can react for a little while. We'll bring it back to you later on when you can handle a microphone again. Yeah, okay, we're pushing the microphone even further. All right, so I've just shown Paola the newsletter from the religious community that our dear friend Shannon Carl joined just a few weeks ago.
Oh my body!
She's been preparing for this for a long time, and Shannon finally was able to go to the convent in Tennessee. And so with this great joy, Shannon is now officially in her live-in period of time as an aspirant with this wonderful community. So I'm really excited that she's there. The Handmaids of the Precious Blood of Jesus is the religious order, and she's there. And we just got the newsletter that has the picture of her with the whole community, and that's what Paola is kind of freaking out about. And I think it's great.
I'm really like reeling it in right now.
Hang on, we'll bring you back.
No, people don't need to hear me scream into their ear.
Well, don't scream again. Just talk. Just say what you're feeling, because the noises were great. The noises expressed an awful lot, and I'm glad that you did that, and I'm glad that we have recorded them for all history. Isn't that great? I mean, isn't it really? It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? It's just her with the whole community and with the bishop who received her into the convent.
She's beaming.
She's absolutely beaming. Yeah.
Beaming.
Isn't it great?
You can just.
You see, like, this is where she belongs.
Yes.
It's where she's meant to be.
This is where she's supposed to be.
It's so wonderful.
And she just looks like she's at home.
Yep.
And I'm so like I'm just rejoicing in her joy.
Right.
And I'm so happy that she is living out God's call joyfully, purposefully.
Yeah.
Like she knows it. And there's like, she found it. And knowing her story, part of me also wants to cry right now because
go ahead, you can do it. I don't have any tissues.
I'm tearing up
moved
right
our studio,
now.
so
we did. No, I'm tearing up because
it's great, isn't it?
This is too much.
It's the joy of being able to see somebody who has been preparing to embrace their vocation.
Okay.
Now finally able to say yes. Wow. And having said yes, then she's able also to, there's so much there. There's so much there
because just to see, I mean, just knowing her and her mentioning like she just came back to faith a few years ago.
Right.
Just a few years ago, and to see how Jesus like is healed her, has called her his beloved, and her believing that, and then her following him all the way to Tennessee to live in that love. Yeah. The rest of her life. Like this is what, oh my gosh.
It's great. It's so beautiful. So pray for Shannon as she's beginning her journey in the religious community.
Yeah, you're more composed than me. Oh, I'm just gonna be in my emotions for a bit now.
No, I had time to sit with this.
Oh, you just decided to like unleash it.
Yeah, exactly. I knew what I was doing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing.
See, unfortunately now I just want to sit and pray and like talk to Jesus.
Well, so we're gonna talk about this though, because what's happened with Shannon and the gift of her going and vocation and embracing this way of living, it's just fantastic. We don't often get to see that happen, right?
No, we don't.
You get to see guys ordained to the priesthood, and that's something that is more or less an annual occurrence in every diocese. And depending on if you know the guy being ordained, or even if you just have gotten into the habit of seeing people embracing that vocation, you might or might not go to the ordination. If you've never been to a priestly ordination, I sincerely recommend it to you. It's a great thing. It's something really beautiful. But we don't often see a young woman going into the religious life. We don't often have the chance to see that. So Sister Allison was here earlier this week. She's getting ready to make her first profession of vows. She's already been in the community for a few years now. She's done her postulancy and her canonical years as a novice. And so now she's able to take that step of being a professed sister, which is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And as she takes that step to be a professed sister, she'll be leaving this area. She's no longer going to be in Bridgeport.
I'm gonna cry again.
Where she was working. She's going out to Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and she'll be working with in a special needs school that they have there. So she's gonna be doing great work. It's really exciting. I'm so happy for her. But we don't often get to see this.
No.
There's something so beautiful about seeing a woman embrace her vocation in religious life and say yes to that call that Jesus has placed on her heart. Right? Now, in similar ways, we see that in other things. This is going to bring us to the topic. Right? We're gonna dive into it from this angle.
Yeah.
Right. It's similar in other areas of life. It's not only when somebody becomes a priest or when a woman enters religious life. You see it at weddings, the couple finally saying that definitive yes to one another, the love that's been building that you've gotten to see. And I, honestly, I don't know what I've done to deserve this, but I have such wonderful couples that I get to work with who are preparing for marriage. And to sit and talk with them and see how well they work together, number one, it's fantastic. Number two, to see just their desire for the sacrament of marriage and to see that desire sort of growing and growing as they go along. And just to see these people they're good people, good humans. I'm so happy that they're together, that they're going to do this. And I don't really know what I did to be so blessed to have those kinds of couples, because you talk to some priests and they'll tell you that they would rather have 5 funerals than have 1 wedding.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Weddings can be notoriously difficult. You get in a couple that's super demanding, you get the bridezilla or something like that. Honestly, I don't think I ever really have to deal with that. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that's not what God has for me. All right. But that's sort of on the outside of ourselves that we see that happening.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this picture of Shannon, and you're right, she's beaming. Oh my goodness! Look at that! Just look at
I know
that.
you took
Just
it
look
away
at-
from
I
me. I
know.
just want to
Well,
stare at
I
it.
wanted to make you stop crying. I was trying to help.
Compose yourself.
But you see how she's beaming in this picture, and how happy she is. You see that on the face of a newly married couple as they walk out of the church.
Yeah.
You see their joy because they've said yes to the call that's been on their heart.
Yeah.
Well, something that you and I were talking about the other day that's been very, very much present on my mind, in my heart for the last week or so, is this image from the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve are in the garden, and the book of Genesis tells us that they walked in the evening with God, in the quiet time of the evening, in the cool part of the evening. So when it's not super hot, when the breeze is blowing, when there's just something very beautiful, they walked in the garden with God. They had this sort of easy conversation with him. Now that image is something that's very powerful when it's followed by their disobedience. When Adam and Eve choose to eat from the tree that they've been forbidden to eat from, they hide right away. They hide from each other, they cover up their nakedness, and they hide from God. So the first thing that happens with sin, with disobedience entering the world, is it causes humanity to hide from itself, from who we really are, and to hide from God, from the Creator, from the one who made us. But what does God do?
He looks for them.
He goes looking for them. Right away, he goes looking for them. So what we see in Genesis is that immediately, even though they have disobeyed, immediately God's looking for them. And he's looking for them, and he wants to speak. Now, you can kind of get into the idea that, all right, God came looking for them to punish them because he knew what they had done. But Genesis doesn't really give you that sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No. On the contrary, Genesis would suggest to us that this is Adam and Eve afraid because they know that what they have done offends against that love and that seeking. God is always seeking them. He's always looking for them. And they know something's off in the relationship.
Yeah.
As we look through scripture, it's the constant story of God seeking his people, God looking for his people, God inviting his people back. That's the whole story. So where do we see this kind of joy? Like, we're looking at this picture of Shannon and we're seeing her joy because she said yes to God's call, to the way that God has allured her heart and called her into the convent. You see that joy in the face of a married couple on their wedding day as they come out of the church. You see that joy on the face of a new priest as he's giving his first priestly blessings. You see that sense of joy on these external ways. You see it for somebody else. But where do we see that for ourselves? Like, where do we realize that God is calling us, that God wants to walk with us, that he's looking for us individually? How often do we realize that he's looking for me?
Ooh,
he's looking for you.
That's good.
On that really deep personal level.
I have a quote for this.
It's not just God sort of looking vaguely or in a broad general sense for humanity. It's like he's looking for me personally.
Yeah.
But what am I doing? Am I like Adam and Eve? Am I in the bushes hiding? Am I trying not to be seen? Am I avoiding his gaze? Or am I willing to look at him? Am I willing to step out of that hiding place and let him find me?
Yeah. So I recently made a post for our Instagram at church that actually got the most likes in a long time.
Okay.
And it had to do with practical steps on how to rest and have leisure.
Okay.
And I pretty much took this from a focus email that I received, and I looked at it and I was like, and it literally was like, take a break, stop what you're doing. Leisure is about engaging with the world and not running away from it. And the quote that I ended up putting up here was from Joseph Pieper.
Joseph Pieper.
Joseph Pieper is a Catholic theologian, and he wrote a book called Leisure, the Basis of Culture. So in this quote, it goes, when we really let our minds rest I can't English right now. Again.
I'm sorry. I made you very emotional looking at Shannon, and it's interfered with your speech.
It has.
Try again.
When we really let our minds rest contemplatively on a rose in a bud, on a child at play, on a divine mystery, we are rested and quickened as though by a dreamless sleep. Or as the book of Job says, God giveth songs in the night. Moreover, it has always been a pious belief that God sends his good gifts and his blessings in sleep. And in the same way, his great imperishable intuitions visit a man in his moments of leisure. It is in these silent and receptive moments that the soul of man is sometimes visited by an awareness of what holds the world together. And so pretty much the recommendations, the practicals were keeping holy the Sabbath day protects Sunday from all necessary labor. Make time for silence, whether you're in nature or in a chapel. Build authentic friendships, really like engage in real friendship. Exercising, going out for a walk, just moving, it's good for your body and your soul. And then the last one, creating and consuming art. So it could be painting or it could be reading a book. Just in the many ways that your body is meant to live in. And what does leisure look like? But active, not passive. You know, I'm not passively, you know. And I learned this the other night. We had date night, and sometimes we end up just watching TV, and then you're just tired. But the other night, Tony and I just talked, and that was the most refreshing. What? Have I not brought this up?
You've never talked about Tony on the podcast.
Oh, LOL.
I'm so excited that you're doing this. No, I have steadfastly avoided talking about Tony on the podcast because I wasn't sure if it was something that you felt comfortable doing. Paola has a boyfriend named Tony, and he's a great guy.
He's a great guy. He's a really.
I think he's a wonderful man.
He's a wonderful.
I mean that. Like,
I know.
I really do think he's a wonderful guy.
I'm remembering the comment that you had said about like me waiting so long to get my house blessed, and you're like, well, you, a baptized Catholic, have like waited a month and a half for me to ask to have the house to be blessed. And like your unbaptized Christian believing boyfriend who's Protestant was like, why are you taking so long to do this? I got a kick out of that.
Okay. Wow. So you're like giving all the details about wow.
Oh, no, I think this will make it, well, yes, let's share. Because there are things that go on in our personal life.
It's yours to share.
It's mine to share. So anyways, but I realized this. We said this at the end of our date, and I were like, it was so much better just to spend the hours talking and being refreshed and not feeling like I'm going to bed exhausted, to the point that the next day I woke up and I was like, I feel really good about that. Like, you ever have just like really good conversation, really good community time? And it sucks because I bought myself like a stupid big TV, and you saw it when you walked in. Like, it's a beautiful 75-inch TV. You know, it was a gift for myself. But like, but what has happened is like, oh no, I got to stop going to the television.
So
like there's spaces for it, but then sometimes it's like, oh, well, like I live by myself.
There are other things that can be more refreshing.
Refreshing. Yeah. Like, so this week I've been adding. I went to the farmer's market with my sister yesterday.
What is a yarket?
Yarket. What's a yarket? You know, I easily could have gone home, but it was nice to go and do something with her after work. Go to the farmer's market, get some vegetables, just regular everyday living. So
I was thinking about this morning. Yesterday, I actually got the day off.
Nice.
Which was good. I went fishing, which was really fun.
Yeah,
nice to go fishing. And I was thinking about it this morning when I got up. I was thinking about my schedule, and I realized I have nothing after 1:00 this afternoon. I'm completely free. I'm thinking it's a gorgeous day.
It's beautiful. Go fishing again.
I'm going fishing again.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, I haven't gone fishing 2 days in a row in over a year.
Unless you were on vacation.
Less than a year, because it was in Montana. That doesn't count. That's different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go fishing again because I can, and I know that's something that's like helps me to clear my mind, and it's a nice thing. It opens things up for me. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. I had not thought of leisure the basis of culture. I had not thought of anything related to Joseph Pieper and his thinking. I hadn't even thought of leisure in the context of God is looking for us.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought up this quote from Pieper, because God is looking for us. God is looking for Adam and Eve, and they stay hidden.
Yeah.
They stay hidden, and they won't walk with him. But what does Jesus say? Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest.
Yeah.
So when Jesus invites us to go with him, when he invites us to come to him, whatever our vocation might be, me as a priest, you as a laywoman, Shannon as a religious sister, thanks be to God, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, God's inviting us to go with him. And then if we're going to go with him, to be with him, if we're going to enter into that place with him, it's going to be a place of rest. So when Pieper is talking about leisure and this quote that you just gave to us about like sleep, in dreams God speaks to us, in that place of rest, in that community with another person when you sit down and have that conversation, then this is a way that God looks for us. So he's looking for us in those quiet places, in the rest. He's looking for us in, this means also in some ordinary ways.
The natural,
right, very much on a natural level, exactly. But that he's also looking for us on a contemplative level in that quiet place of prayer. A lot of times we get into this idea that we've got to be doing something.
Yes.
It's up to me to do this thing. I have to have some activity that I'm doing, or I have to be ministering in some way. Right? But then if God wants to speak to us in that silence and in that quiet place, then there's a whole world that opens up. A whole world that opens up of ways in which God wants to encounter us. But we're only going to give him that space if we recognize that he's looking for us. So what is it that motivates Pieper when he's talking about leisure and taking this time of rest? It's because he knows that the way God wants to communicate with us requires that rest, requires us to stop being so active all the time.
Right.
What gets in the way is that we're always being active.
Always.
Now, this is interesting, okay, because what's the consequence of sin?
There's a lot. I mean, do you want the fourfold?
So the
basic theological response?
One of the main consequences of sin is work.
Yeah, now we have to work by the sweat of our brow.
Right? We now have to work. But even work is meant to be ordered.
Yes, and we live a very disordered work life.
Yes.
Especially in America, we need to be like France. I need a month off.
I would love that.
Can you just take a month off? How much nicer the world would be in America? Maybe. Or like we need more holidays.
I don't know if vacation is quite enough to make America that much nicer.
That's
to make
true.
us as Americans nicer to each other.
That's
there's a lot of other things that we need.
That is, yeah.
No, I think a big part of it, now if we're just going to get into cultural commentary here for a second, I think one piece is that we don't take vacation the way that we ought to.
No, we don't.
We don't recognize what time off is actually meant to do.
Yeah.
But we also have this sense that my work is always indispensable. And it's not. You know, you can live without me. In fact, I think when I go away, the parish does better. At least the office staff does better.
Until your dog has a terrible infection as soon as you leave.
Oh yeah.
And then his eyes are like swollen. We're like, what do we do?
Yeah, that happened. That happened. That was bad.
Yeah. But when you were talking about that was the first thing I thought about, was just the importance of leisure in order to allow God to find you. Because what do you do?
I hadn't thought of that at all. I'm so glad you went there.
Yeah. Well, because sin, when you're in sin, you put so many distractions into your life. Like you need noise, you need distractions, because in a way you're trying to deal with darkness. So you feel like you have to do something.
Right.
Because if you sit too long, guilt, shame, restlessness, like all of that sits in. So your response is to start to do something.
Right.
Because you don't want to sit alone too much with your thoughts, especially if it's, especially
I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then to really, to have that encounter with God, well, okay, for example, like 15 minutes ago, my sister was just here and we were talking about some stuff, and then she decided to sit down because she got back from a workout, had no breakfast, and did not eat afterwards, and was literally passing out.
Well, that's not good.
And I was like, here's my oatmeal bake. You can eat my breakfast. And so she just walked down, and then she started kind of asking me questions, and we got into a conversation of like, I don't know, we were talking about Juneteenth, and I was talking about Sister Thea Bowman, and kind of like looking up some stuff. And she goes,
let's do this. We're going to put the Joseph Pieper quote in the show notes, and we're going to put a link to something about Sister Thea Bowman.
Yes.
All right, don't let me forget that.
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay. Well, we can just tell Chris. Chris, make sure you tell us. But the conversation kind of ended.
Right. It's so nice to have a producer.
So she was like, "Oh, I didn't know there were Black Catholics," is kind of what she said. And then we got into a discussion about like Native American Catholics, and then she asked me a lot of questions. Well, like why did the church feel like it needed to come and tell Native Americans that they're wrong and they needed to be reformed? Talked a little bit about it, and so the one angle that I kind of went at it was like, well, Wendy, then what is true? You know, like you know, her best friend is Jewish.
Well, kind of it's interesting that she took it as the church wanted to come and tell people that they were wrong.
Right, like what makes it wrong is what she was wondering. Like,
but what evangelization is not coming in to tell people that they're wrong.
Right.
Evangelization is coming to share
the good news.
The good news that they're loved by God, whether they believe in God or not. It's to tell them there is a God, to announce something to them.
Yes.
Not to say you're wrong for all of these different things, but to tell them something that's beautiful and true.
And in the history of the church, some of that has been done poorly.
Oh, of course.
And so those were the things that she was bringing up. So she's like, well, what happened at these reservations? I was like, fully aware of those situations that had been risen up, many people in the church rose up to reform the injustices that were happening.
Yeah. So and to place exclusive blame for those injustices only on the church is incorrect, because it was also, there's government involved.
Yeah, there's politics.
There were individual people who did not actually represent the church who were part of these things.
Exactly.
If anything, sometimes the church ended up being the we're stuck. We're kind of being forced to step into a situation that has been created that we now have to try to manage as humanely as possible. And in some cases, the church did that very well. In some cases, the church did that very poorly. But it's always a more complicated thing.
Right. And that's,
we can name injustice for what it is, and without apology, name the injustice. And by apology, I mean without like trying to make it less unjust.
Yes.
That's what I mean by without apology. I don't mean that like we shouldn't apologize for evil that's been done.
Right. And so as we're kind of talking about that, it kind of led into a discussion of like, well, I said, Wendy, like if Jesus, if he really is who he says he is, then it has repercussions. It matters.
Right.
Because he's either a lunatic.
You went C.S. Lewis on her?
I went C.S. Lewis on her.
Love
and so, because we talked about it, it's like, I think before we can answer all these other questions about church and obviously some of the things that we have in our church history, let's look at the person of Jesus. Because if it doesn't matter, then and if he's not real, if everything about him is not real, then it really doesn't matter. But if it does, this has repercussions. And I kind of said a line, I was like, yeah, like when Pontius Pilate was looking at Jesus in the face, and he was like, what is truth? And so she laughed and she chuckled at that. She was like, yeah, like I ask that all the time, like, what is truth? I was like, okay, Wendy, well, I think if we're going to move into these other spaces, maybe just ask yourself that question, like, what is truth? And is Jesus a lunatic, a liar, or is he the real deal? But it was like a good conversation that I had with my sister, and it was great. But and I thought about this, and like, what is truth? Is though in order to engage with truth, you need to make time to be self-reflective. You need to make time for silence. You need to make time to be with your thoughts. Sin doesn't allow you to pursue truth.
Right.
You are bound by lies, and you repeat those again and again.
Well, this is the interesting thing when people are pointing out historical injustice, right? They recognize that there was an injustice, and they're correct.
Yes.
There was in fact injustice. How do you know that it was unjust? How do you know that this thing that happened in the past was unjust? You're saying it. I agree with you, but how do you know that it was unjust?
Yeah. You know.
There has to be something that is true.
Right.
And that is true across cultures and times.
Right, across peoples. So you know, as much as she's like, well, why would we need to change the way that Native American spirituality is? Like, Wendy, there are elements of truth throughout different cultures because of the shared human experience. Like we all are created and ordered in such a way. But the question then is, what is the fullness of truth? That's the thing.
Well, this is where the church talks about not so much taking over or obliterating a culture, but inculturation.
Right.
The idea that every culture is capable of receiving the gospel. Every person is capable of receiving the gospel
Every nation.
Human beings, by their very nature, are ordered to God. And so it is possible for anyone to encounter God, to know God, to understand God. We can come to this place where we know the Lord. Therefore, culturally, when it comes to the way that we're going to express the faith, understand the faith, there are all kinds of cultural things that can remain. We don't have to get rid of our own native cultures or the things that are typical of this ethnicity or that ethnicity. Like we can bring all of this stuff into the relationship with God, into contact with God. The church wants to enculturate, that is, to bring these things into the church, as opposed to
homogenizing.
Imposing something exclusive. Now, when the church does try to impose something exclusively and doesn't take the time to understand and engage with the culture, then we start to run into all kinds of problems. But this is where that leisure and that rest can come in so beautifully, because to understand a culture and to appreciate the beauty that a culture has, it can take time. Like think about going to learn another language, right? So you can study the language in school, and you can study the language out of the books, and you can learn an awful lot. You can even become fairly proficient in that language. But then go to the place where that language is spoken, and you start to understand even more of the language. This language now has nuanced meanings because I'm seeing how the language is used in its native place. I'm seeing how the language is used by the people who speak it every day, and I'm seeing it in the context of its culture. And so the culture now starts to come alive more, which means the language comes alive more. I can't possibly understand the culture, really understand the culture, if I don't have a sense of how its language works. As I get to know how its language works, I'm going to understand the culture better. But how am I ever going to understand how a language works?
And what is culture makes room for leisure?
The only way you can possibly understand how a language works is if you talk to people. Conversation is necessary. So what you were talking about, that Peter was talking about, those rich conversations that allow us to know one another more deeply. And then with that conversation, then you can start to understand more about how things are going to work in the world. Having had these conversations, having spoken to this person, to this person, to this person, I understand better how all of this stuff works. And then that's going to mean I have to sit down with them. And what happens when you sit down to talk with somebody? You have to eat with them eventually.
Share a meal like Jesus did.
And that means I'm going to learn how they eat. I'm going to learn how people in this culture eat. The type of food they eat, the way they eat. And that's going to tell me something more about them. That's going to tell me something more about what the culture really is. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. So while you're fishing tomorrow, or today actually, sorry.
Today, yeah, man, I'm doing it today.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Like I have a memory when I was a kid. I loved canoeing. It was at the Boys and Girls Club in Greenwich. They had a bunch of like acres up in North Greenwich, just like grass and trees and woods. And it was beautiful. Eventually I became a canoe instructor there, and I requested it because I would fall asleep at the pool. I'd be like, I can't do this. It's too hot. I need to be doing something with my body. So I was like, put me in the lake. I'm going to flip people over. It's going to be the best job ever. And It was. But my favorite thing, in between, like while a group of kids were coming and going, I just loved to sit in the canoe, and I would, either sit or lay down, and I would just like let the canoe take me as I floated, and I looked at the trees and I looked at the sky. And there was something about that for me that made me begin to experience God in that way. Like I didn't know God was using my love for nature to reach my heart eventually. So as I was going to this camp as a kid, I started working at this camp when I was in high school. And then when I got to college and I met Jesus, the experience of that lake totally changed when I would return home from my summers after college, because now I was seeing this with the eyes of Christ. I was seeing nature differently. I was seeing it as his creation, and it revealed him more and more, and how God uses creation to bring us back. Hello, Katie. How God uses creation to point us back to him as creator. Right. And so like these moments of leisure remind me of my own creation. Who am I as a creature of God, as a daughter of God, and who is God as creator, as father? It's the meeting point of that. But especially in our area in Fairfield County, we just go boom, 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 boom. And it's so It's so hard. And you're like, how's
Yeah.
everybody? How are you doing? I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm
Well,
tired.
so often our hiding space, that place where we're avoiding God, it's in our work, it's in our activities,
Yes.
it's in keeping the busy schedule.
Yes.
So if I can say, oh, I'm really busy, then I must be succeeding, right?
Right.
The more I can say I'm busy, the more I can succeed.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before
Yeah.
on past episodes that,
Yeah.
you know, I don't like it when people say, Father, I know you're really busy. Can you do this? Not because I don't appreciate that they understand my schedule and that there's a lot going on. I do appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a little prick of conscience every single time.
Interesting, because people say that to me too.
Yeah, I know you're busy. Can you do this? Well, it's true. There's a busyness that comes with this, but I never want the fact that I have an occupied schedule
unavailable.
to be something that makes me unavailable to you.
Yeah.
But also, and this is where I'm really convicted of it, I hate how often being busy is the thing that I hide behind and that allows me to neglect prayer.
Mm-hmm.
God is looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
God comes looking for Adam and Eve, and they hide. They're hiding because they're ashamed. They're hiding because of all these other things. They're not yet busy. They haven't yet. There's not enough going on yet in the world for them to be busy.
Yeah.
But they're hiding from God. Well, I'm no longer worried about certain things, like Adam and Eve are experiencing nakedness for the first time, so they're both hiding from each other and from God because they don't want to be seen in their nakedness.
Right.
I'm not worried about if God sees me naked or not. That doesn't really matter. Like that's not a thing that I think of very often. But I'm worried about God seeing maybe that I'm not as successful.
Yeah.
That I don't have it all together.
Yeah.
Is that why I let busyness get in the way of prayer sometimes?
Yeah.
So easily we let the schedule, we let all that stuff that we have going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a thing that stands between us and communion with one another.
Right.
I'm too busy. We'll have to meet in 3 months. Or we'll get lunch someday. How many times have you had that happen? Somebody says, "Oh, let's get lunch. Let's get lunch." Yeah, we'll get lunch, and you never get lunch, and it's 3 years later that you're saying, "Hey, let's get lunch." Why haven't we ever done this in so long?
6 months go
but
by.
then the same thing happens for us with God. Like we get so caught up in being busy. Oh, I don't have time to be a saint. I don't have time to do these things. But that's exactly what God is looking for. He's looking for you.
Yeah.
On a personal level. It's not just that we have to make time for him. It's that we've got to just give ourselves that space to rest, because then God can find us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even realize that he's looking for us because we're so caught up in staying hidden. We're caught up in that busyness. But God's looking for you.
I like how you said this, because if we don't even have time, we don't make time for relationships that we have in the natural world, we are not even doing it in the spiritual world.
Oh, for sure, we're not going to do it in the spiritual
There's
world.
no way, like, you don't even think about it. You're like, well, I barely have time for like my own people.
Right.
And it's really interesting. And so this is why, I mean, you can go ahead and read Joseph Pieper's book. It's definitely more philosophical. So you take your time reading it. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's the easiest read.
It's worth it though.
But it's totally worth it,
because it's short.
It's very, yeah,
it's a really short book.
It's just a very good explanation of like how culture is created, what the human person is created for, but also how do you enter into divine intimacy, and recognizing the natural world around you, and what are the lies that we fed ourselves as a culture, that we live by. So it's just really interesting how, wait, if I made time for authentic friendships, I personally have been doing this, like I've been really more intentional over the last couple months to text people and invite them, because I'm a natural introvert. People don't believe that, and they need to start believing that. But I am purposely making myself.
Introversion doesn't mean sociability.
It doesn't mean sociability.
Introversion is how you process information and how you process your whole life.
Or like, I mean, but there was a time where I didn't want to be near people. You know, I was like, oh, people are exhausting. And so like, then you don't even try it. But something that I realized is, okay, like something that makes me come alive is when I have good conversations with people, when I just spend time with people. It's way more than when I'm like watching something on Netflix or doing whatever. But the call to also invite people into my life. You know, there was always a fear to do that, because I always believed, there was always a lie in my life that I believe I wasn't worthy of relationships or friendships. I didn't have that many growing up, so it kind of continued. And then as God healed that, recognizing my need for community, I was like, okay, well, I have to do something about it, because it's not just going to happen.
Right.
It doesn't, these things just don't happen. They need our they need our active, we need to be intentional about it. So just to see if I need, we can't stop using the excuse I don't have time. It's actually coming to a point is like, it's not so much that you don't have time. It's just, are we willing to schedule it? Like, can like, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I'm just going to revolt against the word schedule.
Okay, maybe, okay.
Right? Because that in
plan,
itself,
intentionally plan, or kind of change it. It goes back to this work idea. Yes.
Well, I think it's more just recognize the need and stop.
Yeah.
Like recognize the need for that rest and take it. It's not about planning the rest, although sometimes we do have to plan time off and everything. I understand that. But it's just do it. Just do the thing. Same thing, like God is looking for you. So you can stay hiding in the bushes, avoiding God seeing you, or you can step out of the bushes. You can take that step towards God. And then God's going to walk with you every step of the way, but God's looking for you. And he can't drag you out of your hiding place. Because that's not freedom.
No, he definitely won't do that.
So recognize it today. God's looking for you.
He'll be shouting from the rooftops. He'd be like,
what is necessary? What is necessary for you to walk with God? What is necessary for you to say yes to God? Come out of the hiding place and let him walk with you.
Yeah. So leisure goes right with prayer.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to you for bringing that in, because that was not at all on my radar, and I think it's fantastic. Beautiful. All right, I got a heart out.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, today's one of those days. We've become very, very celebrity-like with our schedules. Speaking of schedules and being busy, right?
I have to go pick up my nieces.
Yeah, I got to get onto a call here. So this is great.
Shannon.
God's looking for you. Pray for Shannon.
Yeah.
nunsforpriests.org. We'll put that in the show notes too. There's going to be lots of stuff in the show notes today. This is great.
This is great.
All right. Yeah. God bless you. RLTL. I'm Father Sam Kachua.
I'm Paola Pena.
Woo.